Hello viewers, welcome to episode 3 of Mindgamer. In this episode I'm going to focus on one of the core elements of Hawken gameplay and many action games in general, the duel. The situation in which just you and another player go one-on-one with no outside distractions or interventions. In a real game, this hardly ever happens. You'll rarely have a situation where both you and an opponent are at full health, full cooldowns, equal positioning, and see each other at the exact same time. But that's fine. Part of dueling is learning how to initiate the fight under conditions that are in your favor, and how to avoid having the same done to you. This is war, and there's no reason to play fair. In the words of the great philosopher Jane Cobb, I'll kill a man in a fair fight, or if I think he's going to start a fair fight. Going into any battle, it is extremely important to know your own skills and capabilities, perhaps even more so than having good aim or knowledge of your enemy. What mech you pilot and what weapons and items you have equipped will dictate your playstyle, and no two classes play alike. To help you get the most mileage out of this video, I'll provide a short introduction to the classes I play here before showing you their respective duels. That way, you'll have a better understanding of why I make the decisions that I do. Feel free to skip ahead if you're already familiar with these classes. The CRT Recruit, also known as Fred, is a strong, reliable B-class mech, and in the previous episode I've shown you just what it's capable of in the right hands. As a B-class, it starts off with a base of 675 HP, which can be brought over 700 with the use of some optimizations. For comparison, A-class mechs like the Berserker, Scout, or Infiltrator start off with 500 base HP, and C-class mechs like the Grenadier, Rocketeer, and Brawler start off with 850. In practical terms, this means that I want to trade hits with the lighter mechs because I have the HP buffer, but I will not survive an all-out slugging match against the heavier guys. Though I used the Point D Vulcan in the last video, I've since switched back to the assault rifle for its versatility and range. Not having a wind-up time means that I can use the AR to take advantage of smaller timing windows to hit enemies. I use the repair charge because it's a great HP boost in the middle of a fight. Regarding the EMP, I think it's a wonderfully powerful tool, and that there is no reason not to use it when you play. In an all-in fight, you'd be silly not to use each and every tool at your disposal to overcome your opponent. However, you won't really see me use it very often in this video, for the sole reason that there's not much I can teach you about putting bullets and rockets into your enemy while he's disabled. That's pretty much it. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's look at some fairly straightforward duels first, before we get to the more complex battles. In this first fight, I start taking fire as soon as I spawn, and to make matters worse, I turn in the wrong direction at first, wasting precious fractions of a second and putting me at a further disadvantage. I turn to face my ambusher, but before I even see him, I make a dodge to my left. I know he has the jump on me, but he hasn't shot his explosive weapon yet. With any luck, a blind dodge like this might make him miss. As soon as I can see him, I fire my tow missile immediately, before I can even guarantee a clean shot. Because he has the jump on me, I have to take risks like this to make up for lost ground, or else risk falling behind. As soon as my tow missile is fired, I dodge to put the building corner between us. This functions as a sort of soft reset for the battle, giving me time to think, and momentarily preventing my opponent from pressing his advantage. It also buys time for my tow rocket to reload. You are the most vulnerable when your power weapon is on cooldown between shots, because during that time your damage potential is limited only to what your primary can do. In a duel, you should seek to minimize the time you're exposed while you're reloading your secondary. Conversely, if you know someone has just used his secondary weapon, you don't have to waste any time dodging what he can't possibly fire at you, and you can be more aggressive. I walk up to the corner so that when I side dash out, I'll dash out as far as possible. I know the enemy's tow is on cooldown, and that he probably wants to shoot me as soon as he sees me. In this case, that means he'll end up firing at the corner that I pop out from. By moving up to the corner and dashing out as far as possible, I maximize the speed at which I distance myself from the spot he is going to shoot. At the same time, I fire my own freshly reloaded rocket. Because we're fighting through such a narrow corridor, my dash also places me back into cover. In a duel, this is a powerful way to control the flow of the battle. If you only expose yourself when you're ready to do your damage, and then immediately make yourself unable to be targeted again, you'll maximize the damage you do while minimizing the damage you take. Taking a quick assessment of the situation, I see that my opponent is at roughly 1/3 HP, while I'm closer to half. Now I have the advantage, and I want to press it. I rush into fight because I know at this point, if we trade damage, I'll be the one coming out alive. I shoot my toe as soon as possible because previously we both shot ours at roughly the same time. If my rocket's on cooldown, so is his. If I don't finish him off in this instant, he'll be able to fire his rocket and possibly kill me. He doesn't get the chance. My rocket finishes him off. Here's what the whole duel looks like from start to finish. Now let's take a look at a more high-level duel. As I finish repairing, a dot shows up on my radar, indicating that an enemy is nearby. From its location at an enclosed edge of the map, I reason that it must be a new spawn with full HP. Unfortunately for me, they spawned as I was dashing forward, so I'm guaranteed to appear on their radar. There's no hope of me remaining undetected and catching them by surprise. My next priority is to get an immediate visual on the enemy to figure out exactly what I'm up against, which will dictate exactly what my next moves will be. I make the poor assumption that my opponent isn't ready for me yet, and so I dash around the corner as quickly as possible to see what he's up to. This is what I see. The small frame, short health bar, and grenade tell me that I'm up against an infiltrator class mech, specializing in hit and run tactics with the capability to cloak. That he is in the middle of a dash and already has a grenade flying at my face tells me he has good situational awareness, the ability to predict my movements based on my radar signature, and at least some knowledge of how to use hit and run tactics. My assessment of this pilot then is someone who is, at the very least, decently skilled. Against a lesser opponent, I would simply go all in and start a slugging match, relying on my larger HP pool to overwhelm a smaller mech. However, this would not work against this opponent. He would simply keep falling back while tossing grenades in his wake, avoiding my fire while whittling me down. Instead, I decide to also resort to hit and run tactics, starting a ring around the rosy style fight where both of us are trying to dash out, hit the enemy with an airburst, toe, or grenade, and then dash back in behind the rock that we put between us. He hits me with a grenade, and I miss my twitch fire toe. I dash to the left in case he decides to follow up a successful explosive hit by running at me. Instead, I notice that he has dashed to the left as well. The HUD in Hawken will track spotted targets for a brief time even after they duck behind cover, and so I don't even have to look at my radar. I predict that his next attack will come from the left, so I start moving to my right to evade it while my toe cools down. People have a natural tendency to resist changing their direction of movement. This can be important to know when predicting your opponent. It is also important in dodging. When you're trying to evade enemy fire, try to change directions as often as possible without stopping. Now that he has disappeared from my HUD, I have to rely on my radar to track his position. When I break visual contact, I resort to walking my mech around instead of dashing. This is both to save my dash for later, and to try to get myself to disappear from his radar so that he'll have a harder time predicting my movements. Now I know that he's going to either appear from the left or from the right, and that I want to pre-aim in one of those directions if I want to maximize my reaction time for firing my toe. I arbitrarily decide to pre-aim at the left side, but I keep my crosshair there after I notice that his dot is starting to move in that direction. As soon as I spot him, my crosshair is already in place to fire a toe rocket. I immediately dodge back under cover after firing. Pre-aiming and dodging after firing are extremely important skills to learn. They maximize the damage you do per time that you're exposed to enemy fire. Even when you fight out in the open, you can benefit from dodging after firing, because the enemy will be momentarily blinded by your rocket in his face, and he will shoot where he last saw you, not to the spot that you dodged to. You saw this earlier with my opponent's opening salvo. His dodging after firing caused me to shoot my rocket wide. I see my opponent has dodged to the right, and expect him to attack from the right again. As soon as I make visual contact, I dodge to the left, avoiding most of the damage from another grenade. Now I have the advantage. My opponent is at half health. For an A-class mech, that's about 250 HP. I, on the other hand, have almost double that, and I want to press my advantage. I know my opponent knows he's behind at this point, and probably wants to disengage. So instead of continuing the ring around the rosy, I jump over the rock to get an overhead view, leaving him nowhere to hide. If he wants to run, he'll have to cross open ground to do so, exposing him to more of my fire. In practice, this turns out a little bit differently than I intended to. My opponent drops a scrambler to put a bunch of fake dots on my radar, and then hits his cloak just as he ducks behind a rock, utterly breaking both visual and radar contact. He actually steps away from the rock, and I get confused and start turning in circles while he pelts me with bullets. I still have the high ground advantage, however, and I boop him on the head with a toe airburst before dropping down behind the rock. He manages to tag me with another grenade, but at this point, I've saved up enough HP to eat it. He's a bit too slow on the dodge, and I plink away the rest of his HP with my assault rifle. Here's what the whole duel looks like from start to finish.
No, I can't shoot. That's just great. I love this fucking keyboard. I'm gonna break it tonight. Watch.
Here's a duel in which I get absolutely monster wrecked. I come across a dueling pair and swoop in to steal the kill. I fire my toe in the hopes of catching both combatants with the blast, but I detonate it too early instead of simply letting it impact my target, leaving the survivor unscathed. I see my enemy strafing towards cover while facing me instead of taking the faster route of dashing straight for cover. I correctly assume that this means he's got something for me, and I dodge the first toe rocket. Unfortunately for me, my clever opponent has hedged his bets. He shot a rocket where I was, but he also dropped an HE grenade where I would be. Though this limits his damage potential, he guarantees that at least one of his explosive weapons hits me. Had I chosen not to dodge, his HE would have missed, but I would have eaten the toe instead. I barely get to take a few steps before another problem arises. A third opponent starts firing at me. Though he's too far away to do any real damage, I know that if I dawdle for too long, he'll catch up and make me the meat in a mech sandwich. This psychological pressure makes me panic. Instead of focusing on my immediate target like I should, I assume that I will win this fight, and I start calculating what I need to do to best advantage myself in the future fight against this new opponent. I come to the conclusion that I have to finish this fight as quickly as possible before the other guy arrives, and so I greedily and predictably and stupidly rush in. Instead of dodging around the corner like I should have, I elect to jump instead. I fire my toe as soon as I see my enemy, but he dodges as soon as he sees me. The motion of my jump is predictable, and so just as I land on the ground, his rocket lands on my nose. My opponent does the smart thing and runs behind cover while his toe reloads, and I take this time to drop a repair charge for the heals. He then does what I should have done, dodging out of the cover so that I miss my second reaction-fired rocket. I try to hug him as close as I can. This way, if he shoots a toe, he hits himself as well. The moment he gets some distance on me, I dodge to avoid the rocket. Though this buys me a little bit more time, I'm far too low on HP, and he finishes me off with his rifle. Here's what the whole duel looks like from start to finish. I hope you've enjoyed and learned from this close analysis of 3 duels in the Fred. This video is getting a bit long, so I'm going to end it here and make a part 2 containing several more duels using the Scout class, which has a vastly different and, in my opinion, much more intense playstyle. In the meantime, enjoy these additional clips that I recorded and try to analyze them for yourself.